Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, August 17th, 2023 meeting of the Glendale Historical Preservation Commission. Today, all meetings are broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable Channel 6 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition on the city's webpage, glendale.gov/live, on youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire devices using a free app called ScreenWeave and choosing Glendale TV from the menu. Meetings are also archived on the city website for viewing anytime at glendaleca.gov/agendas. And without any further ado, roll call, please, Jay or Casey.
Commissioner Yerka, Commissioner Paul,
Here.
and Chairperson Doom.
Here. Okay.
Should note for the record that Mr. Doom is chairperson because Chair Craig Naughty is absent tonight.
Yes. I wish Craig was here. And our agenda was posted outside the meeting of City Hall on August 14th on the bulletin board. And if we had a chance to look over our minutes, do we have any changes to our minutes, or I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from June 15th.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. May we please have roll call for approval of minutes?
Commissioner Yerka,
Yes.
Commissioner Paul,
Yes.
Chairperson Doom.
Yes.
For the future, I think minutes only need a second, and then we're done.
Oh, okay.
I'll try to make sure I know that for sure next time, but I think
All
that's
right.
how it is. But
That's fine. Thank you. It is now in time for oral communications. And as chair, I get to deliver happy and sad news to the departure of our longtime fellow commissioner, Mike Morgan. And I am very proud to read this resolution from the Historical Preservation Commission as follows. Whereas Michael Morgan devoted 14 years of continuous service to the City of Glendale as a member of the Historical Preservation Commission from 2010 until 2023. And whereas Mr. Morgan's unselfish contribution of his personal time and energy and his deep knowledge of the city's history, neighborhoods, and buildings has promoted widespread respect for the objectives of this commission and the city, and whereas Mr. Morgan has demonstrated strong and continuing interest in solving the many and varied problems before the commission for the purpose of improving the welfare of the citizens through the protection of the city's heritage, and whereas Mr. Morgan has seemingly researched, lived in, visited, knew the residents of, or ridden his bicycle, that's my favorite part, past every historic property in the city of Glendale, and has shared his vast body of knowledge about the history of the city with both the commission and the broader community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Historic Preservation Commission and Community Development Department of the City of Glendale extend to Michael Morgan sincere appreciation for the years of service so generously given. And it's signed by each of us right now, though you won't, I can show it to you, but Mr. Craig Naughty in his absence must still sign it. And Jay, may I entertain commissioner members' comments and then open it up for oral communications?
yes, if
Okay.
you want to do that, it's fine.
Okay, so any board commissioner comments first?
And Mr. Morgan, I don't know if he wants, he does want to speak. I don't know if you want to do that before or after they. I don't care. Okay.
Okay, come before. Come on up.
And then we can end with them saying nice things.
Yes, that's it.
Hello, my name is it on? Are we
Yes.
on? My name's Mike Morgan, and I was, like they said, I've been on the commission for 14 honorable years. I loved every moment of it. And I just wanted to mention the picture you see before you is me around 1962 or 63 on my Schwinn 3-speed bike. It was my mode of transportation and allowed me to get around Glendale in the 60s. It also allowed me to visit many locations that would be important site visits later with the HPC, so much so that it became a running joke for Chair Craig Naughty, who sadly is not here tonight, over the years. I just could not leave without letting the chair see said vehicle, which is now in style with our current mayor. I would like to read a little bit of the letter I got from the city of Glendale because I think it's really nice. It says, "Dear Mr. Morgan, according to our records, you have served as a commissioner for 3 terms on the Historic Preservation Commission. In accordance with city policy, your service on the Historic Preservation Commission has termed out. Your contribution has been an important component to the city of Glendale's success, and the council wishes to express its appreciation for their willingness to volunteer your talents and time to serve our city." And I think it's very nice for them to have sent me this letter. And now with what Commissioner Doom has just said, it's icing on the cake. And I have a little bit, about 3 minutes worth of speech. I'd like to thank a lot of people. As I just read to you the letter from the city concerning my tenure. So hello. For the last brief moment, as I would no longer be a Historic Preservation Commissioner, but rather than think of being a former commissioner, I would like to think of myself as Historic Preservation Commissioner Emeritus. I always thought when it was my time to step down from the commission, I should point out a few things and thank some people who helped me go on this historic ride. First, the 2 council members who bookended my time on the commission. Frank Quintero, who originally nominated me for the HPC back in 2009, and Paula Devine, who thought I had done a good job and asked me back to the commission. Jay Platt and Alan Loomis, who explained to me, a novice, what the HPC was all about over lunch in Los Feliz. They convinced me and I joined, and I'm still here after 14 years. Somebody has to keep things going, and I nominate Casey Conley, who keeps the wheels turning for the HPC, and brilliantly, I might add. And now, a few commissioners I served alongside and learned from. Starting with Ruben Amarian. To me, a novice, he was a professor, dignified, well-dressed, respected, and knowledgeable. Brej Mardigan, gone way too soon, but the bravest, kindest, giving commissioner of them all. Arlene Vidor, my fellow freshman commissioner, always working for the best results for the residents and the HPC. Desiree Shearer, who always helped the commission to stay on course when it looked like we had gone astray. Carolyn Tufenkian, what a scholar in art history who has made every commission she has been on a better one. Vartan Garpetian, the commissioner whose knowledge of real estate and planning sharpened the HPC's vision. Lorna Vartanian, saving the best for last. What can you say that has not been said before? Always well-versed on and in every meeting. You brought out the best in all of us. Thank you from the bottom of this commissioner's heart. I'm almost done, but this is the HPC, and I would like to mention 3 historic properties that I was part of and put an ever so small stamp on. GCAT, Grand Central Air Terminal, from the beginning when the HPC was allowed to go in that wreck of a building and step where aviators trod, still is an amazing place to me, many years since, to the jewel it is now. It sends chills down my back thinking about it. If you get to go see the place, please do. The Alex Theater, to make that movie house more than it was, and bring it up to a place where concerts and plays can be held and all Glendale can be proud. Art Evine, where historical districting began in 2006 with the help of Sally McAllister and her famous relatives, Dan and Arthur Campbell, who built the house. 2, my fellow commissioners on the dais, Dan, Nick, Chris, and Kathy, or Commissioner Paul, Doom, Chair Craignotty, and Commissioner Yurka, to be more precise. It has been my honor to serve alongside you. Thank you so much for your knowledge, your concern, and your caring. Finally, at last, to the residents of Glendale, past and present, thank you for making such interesting history and building a great city. And now, this Commissioner Emeritus will fade into the realm of John Calvin Scherer. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you.
Right.
All right. And,
Of course.
oh, yes.
Do you want to, where do you want it? Yeah.
Hold a resolution. So we'll come down there like they do at City Council and take a picture.
Present to him. You guys F isn't part of the resolution, so.
It isn't? Oh, well, thank you.
All right. Do you want to stand in the middle? Yeah. Perfect.
Everybody's taller than me, so it's perfect.
And you're accepting a big check. I want to get in one.
Yeah, come on.
Okay. I'm
There we go.
like the hitchhiking ghost.
What about it?
Thank you.
Get Craig Naughty when he comes back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Jay, Chris is to sign this.
Yeah, we're gonna take that back.
Okay,
We
we'll
already
invite you
told
back
Mike
for our
that we're
next meeting.
Indian giving, pardon my less
Yeah,
than
for their
perfect
presentation.
term.
I'll kidnap you.
So,
There you go.
Okay.
Just put another speaker card on your desk.
okay, if you guys,
Okay, Commissioner Yurka, any comments on
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan?
Yes, I would love to make a few comments. First of all, that was such a gracious and generous speech, and it just exemplifies to me like what a gracious and generous person you are. And I think everyone is so grateful for all the service that you gave. And this is a hard and hardworking commission. And you would come in, I mean, I have my computer, you would come in with your stacks of materials, and it was just clear to your fellow commissioners and anyone seated in the audience how hard you worked and how seriously you took this. And just the final thing I want to say is that I don't know anyone who cares more about Glendale than you do. Thank you.
Commissioner Paul?
Yes, well, we have not crossed paths for a very long time, being that I just joined this in March, but I've had this impression of you as kind of an ideal commissioner between your passion for the subject and your remarkable wealth of knowledge and your heart. So serving alongside you has been an honor because of the depth of that heart and that knowledge together. And to me, you're an ideal commissioner. If you could have a commissioner that has that balance, it doesn't get much better than that. And I thank you just for being able to let me be next to you and have a little knowledge by osmosis, just sharing this with you for the last few months. So thank you so much, and good luck with everything.
Commissioner Morgan, there is a lot to say in a short time to say it. I will try and be as succinct as I can. It has been, as commissioners have said, an honor and a pleasure to serve with you. You have been an ideal, humble public servant, serving up here in 14 years in your capacity. I have learned tremendous amounts of knowledge from you. I hope to continue to use you as a source of knowledge for upcoming agendas, and you'll be very missed. Thank you. Other oral communication card I have?
let me just throw in, staff is gonna
yes,
really
by all
miss
means.
Mr. Morgan, and all of our staff really has enjoyed presenting to you, getting to know you a little bit. I personally have learned a lot from you, and you're fun, and you even participated in my wedding through your outside work when you printed our invitations. And so I've just really enjoyed getting to know you, and I know we'll continue to see each other, and maybe you have an open invitation to come back for community announcements, which you always are so good with, so.
I've loved getting to know everything going on in La Crescenta, getting the commissioners, putting in the PowerPoints, all the little tidbits you'd love to share with the community. Thank you for welcoming me and making my transition to HPC so easy. You will truly be missed.
Continuing with items not limited to our agenda, each speaker is given 5 minutes, and I have one blue card from Grant Michaels.
Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners, and staff. My name is Grant Michaels. I am here today representing the Montrose Verdugo City Spar Heights Neighborhood Association and speaking primarily from my own personal experiences. I want to go ahead and talk to you and thank you for your interest in Rock Haven, which is within the boundaries of our neighborhood association. That is something that we truly care about. In the influence of Michael Morgan, he's one who brought me into the neighborhood association saying, Montrose is sleepy, nothing ever happens. Then Rockhaven began to be sold, 12 Oaks occurred, and as Michael is fond to know, the fun happened. So in speaking of Rockhaven, I've had the pleasure of being able to volunteer with Rockhaven, participate. I have taken the pleasure of putting up the Christmas lights each year, briefly in the time that we do have to do that, and have gotten to know the property quite well. So again, I want to thank you and staff for the care that you have paid to Rockhaven, and would like to make a request that you pay even more attention to that. In my tenure on the Parks and Community Services Commission, I arranged for a field trip to Deukmejian Park. And I would like to offer the suggestion and encourage you to hold a meeting at Rockhaven and allow staff and the full commission to go ahead, view the property, see it for yourself, and I'm going to ask you to continue to provide your oversight and care for Rockhaven as an independent body. Living nearby, I walk by often. I was pleased to see that the roofs were finally tarped, was disappointed that the repairs to the roofs were not made more permanent. And as I go by, yes, we have tarped the roofs for the summer, just in time for the summer to dry out the buildings after the rainy season. I do note that I have not seen windows open and would like to go ahead and make sure that the buildings are being cared for in the best way possible. So, speaking as the president of the Montrose Verdugo City Neighborhood Association, I would like to ask that you consider convening a meeting of the HPC on Rockhaven's site following the precedent that was created under the Parks Commission. It may be a little easier for staff as Rockhaven is a closed site. That likely would be a closed meeting in contrast to the meeting at Deukmejian, which was open to the public. And I will commend Iris for keeping track of that meeting, having to keep minutes, not just of the commissioners' comments as we were wandering around, but also of public comments and those of staff. So I do want to go ahead and thank you, ask you to go ahead and have that consideration, and would like to offer my own congratulations to Michael Morgan as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I have another oral communication card from Alan Dish.
Good evening, Council, Commission. I'm just going to deliver this and then leave, but I will watch it online the rest of the meeting. I really do prefer these meetings than to City Council. I think they're much more interesting.
Please state your name for the record.
My name is Alan Dish. I'm so sorry. I would like to express my sincere thanks also for Mr. Morgan's service. I will remember him for the wonderful way he compared the old and new library buildings as the difference between a motor wagon and a Tesla. So that's what I want to talk about first, and then maybe, if I have time, La Crescenta as well. I want to insist on the library door. It is out of appreciation of the library that I would like to once again restate my desire for the eastern side door to be reopened. Moreover, I would like to clarify some comments I made, comparing the closure of the eastern door to the closure of the Lachin corridor connecting Armenia to Artsakh, which is under blockade, to avoid a misunderstanding. I did not make this comparison to imply that the library door was closed intentionally for malicious purposes. I don't think it was intentional, but perhaps unconscious. Of course, we could explain it as the result of lockdown regulations and then because of a temporary safety situation when homeless congregated at the library's southeast corner. Still, I would like to insist on this seemingly ridiculous comparison between the public library and today's Republic of Armenia. Look, like Armenia, the library's northern and southern entries are open and functioning. East is blockaded only for staff and emergency, not the public. The key is, of course, the west. Its western side, like Armenia's, is closed. Indeed, on the west side, the library is enveloped by a concrete curtain, an allusion to the Iron Curtain that separates Turkey and Armenia, a border which continues to remain closed to this day. Moreover, Armenia has wonderful views to its west of Mount Ararat, our source of pride, which is ours but not really ours. It belongs to Turkey. Similarly, The library's western windows open towards views of the Americana, our source of pride, which is, again, ours but not really ours. That's all I want to say about the library. Second, I was doing some light reading this summer when I picked up this wonderful book titled Wicked Crescenta Valley. Maybe you know it also. Yes. There's a wonderful chapter titled Wicked Politics where we know the story. Ku Klux Klan headquarters in Glendale up to the 60s and so on. But what interests me as a historian and leftist was, like, where was the left during all of this? And do you know the name? Hugh Hardiman. He is the answer. This guy, born in England, then moved to Glendale, a local celebrity of leftist causes who got involved in a minor face-off with members of the Glendale American Legion, making national headlines. Hardiman led a small cadre, just a small bio, of left-leaning politicos right here in the then very conservative Crescenta Valley. He was a leader of the Crescenta Canada Democratic Club. Can I go on 30 seconds?
You have 2 more minutes.
Oh, I have 2 minutes, okay. He was active in the Progressive Citizens of America, which advocated after World War II negotiations with the Soviet Union to slow down the Cold War. So this is why, on November 14, 1947, when a regular meeting with 30-some local Democrats was in progress at the Hardiman home, 20 men from the American Legion office entered the home to stop their meeting. They were just beginning a national pastime of looking for a red under every bed that would consume much of the 50s. Because the home invaders got lenient punishments, Hardiman took it all the way to the Supreme Court, but the court voted in favor of the Legionnaires. And so the Battle of El Moreno Street, as it was called, ended with a whimper. But this is my favorite part. He was friends with Upton Sinclair, you know, the jungle, meatpacking industry, and he lived in Pasadena at some point. But what happened is, in 1923, they went to San Pedro Port for a protest. Sinclair read the Bill of Rights and was arrested when he read the First Amendment, free speech. Then his brother-in-law began reading the Declaration of Independence. He was arrested. Another guy comes up, it goes on, says, but you can't do this. He gets arrested. Finally, Hugh Hardiman goes up and says, oh, it's such nice weather. He gets arrested too. So later he would go to China, come back. Again, he was accused of having sympathies, but he ended up making camps for children in the city of Topanga Canyon, around that area. Then he went to Mexico, died in 1960.
About 20 seconds, Alan.
So I just conclude with this wonderful question, very open-ended. My question is if this house, his house, is historic, and if not, I would like to immediately start its paperwork process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Okay, we also have one other comment that came in today via email. It's not agendized regarding the Sears building. We should try not to have any discussion about it because we don't know when and if this will come to the commission at some point. This is from Emmanuel Gulakian. Hello to the Historic Preservation Commission. That's the email came for you. I'm concerned about plans for the shuttered Sears building. It opened in 1935, and perhaps it can be argued that it should be preserved because it is a historically significant part of Glendale's heritage and revolutionized American commerce. And that's the full statement. So.
Do we have any telephone communications?
Not for this.
Not for oral
Not for oral
communications.
communications? Okay, thank you. Our agenda now has member comments from our fellow commissioners related
did
to
that.
the agenda.
I would just like to endorse the idea of a trip for the commission to Rock Haven to see it. We have, there are clear things that the commission does as part of the business of its meetings, but there are also general mandates regarding the commission as, advocates for preservation, having a responsibility to preserve and to advocate for the preservation of historic resources. And I haven't seen Rock Haven in like 7 years, and I think that would actually be a great idea. I don't know whether it could be a public meeting. I think that would be the best thing. And public, a meeting in the sense that we can't get together as a group without a public notice and a public hearing unless it's closed. So I think it would be great if staff looked into that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Paul, any comments?
Just very quickly, I also, I think I would be very interested to see Rockhaven, and the possibility of having a commission meeting there would be fantastic. I haven't been to Rockhaven in nearly 20, and I'm very curious, and I understand that it's closed now and some of the circumstances around that, but if there's an opportunity to have a commission meeting there, that would be fantastic. And if not, it would be nice to be able to see it one way or another very soon. It's clearly an issue of concern.
Thank you. I would like to invite the public to a meeting on Monday, August 21st of the Crescenta Valley Historical Society at La Crescenta Center for Spiritual Living on the corner of Dunsmore and Santa Carlotta. The topic Monday is Rockature, Southern California's indigenous architecture of river rocks. The program is a fun term for formidable architecture vernacular. Learn about the Southern California rock structures built between 1885 to 1935. These most unusual, unsung, and undocumented rock homes, churches, castles, and other structures will be featured along with a discussion of the social, economic, and technical influences of the time. The program is a must for those who wish to know more about old rock structures that are rapidly disappearing from our communities. The speaker is architect and author Barry Schweigert, who has spent years researching these unique structures in his book, Rockature, which will be available for purchase after the program, which begins at 7 o'clock Monday, August 21st in La Crescenta. And now we proceed to old business. The item agenda is 6A, 1544 Ard Even, a review of the proposed second-story addition related alliterations. Casey?
Yes. Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you. So this is a design review presentation for the proposed second-story addition at 1544 Ard Even. I'm going to go through the presentation maybe a little quicker than I normally would, so that we can get to questions or anything at the end. The property was constructed in 1950 in the ranch style with Tudor revival features and is a contributor to the South Cumberland Heights Historic District. It has character-defining features including an asymmetrical massing, stucco siding with brick wainscoting, stoop with wood stickwork, cross-gable roof, multi-light casement windows, tripartite window with leaded glass diamond panes, and attached garage with cupola. The property is located on the corner of Ard Even Avenue and Glenwood Road, making the north facade very visible from the street. This facade is simple with the continuation of the brick wainscoting towards the front and multi-light casement windows. In the bottom photo, you can see the story poles extended over the existing roof line there. As you move east along Glenview Road, you can see the attached garage. In 2018, the breezeway between the house and the garage was enclosed with a permit, and a portion of the garage was converted to the existing pool room. And in recent years, the rear gate was replaced with this non-compatible gate. As you look southwest towards the property from Glenview Road, as opposed to directly at the facade, the addition is clearly more visible, as you can see in that left-hand photo. And the rear facade itself currently features bifold doors and a covered patio at the center. Here's the site plan for the property with the proposed addition on the southeast corner, as you can see in the bottom there. So the project is proposing a 271 square foot second story addition with a covered balcony. The project is also proposing to convert the existing 197 square foot pool room attached to the garage in the top there to an open rear patio, as well as raising the floor to ceiling height of the existing basement. This is so that they can achieve more livable space for the addition to meet their FAR requirements. The addition will have a 7-foot 8-inch setback from the southern property line and will sit within the boundaries of the existing roof, so it doesn't extend beyond the existing footprint of the building. The roof is gabled with a lower nested gable over the balcony to help break up the massing and add articulation, and the pitch of the roof also does match the existing pitch of the property. I did want to show these images from Google Earth as 2 public comment letters were received with concerns over loss of privacy to the adjoining properties due to the proposed balcony. The addition is set some ways from the adjoining yard to the east, and there aren't any major privacy concerns for this property. Yet there is a privacy and massing concern with the property adjacent to the south. The addition will look directly into the rear yard of the property, as well as overlook an existing seating area. You can see the photo on the left is from the rear yard of the property to the south, and then the photo to the right is from that seating area where you can see the addition. A return for redesign, which is recommended by staff with a condition to limit the addition to one floor, will eliminate this issue. And then I walk through the elevations for each facade. You can see the addition over the southern portion of the primary facade here. The higher pitched roof, which matches the existing pitch, does make the addition more visible, but instead of proposing a lower pitched, we did go with matching the pitch of the existing house because we thought it was a better design option. And all current CDFs of character-defining features of the primary facade are to remain, and then the existing non-compatible entrance door, which is replaced at some point, is being replaced with a single-leaf wood door with central light and flanking side lights. The addition is visible from Glenview Road. The nested gables break up the massing of the addition. Its location on the far end of the building does limit its actual visibility from this angle. The conversion of the pool room would remove a window on this facade, and staff is recommending that this feature be retained. The rear facade, which will be visible when looking southwest from Glenview Road. The proposed railing of the balcony is proposed as metal and glass, and staff does propose a condition that this be a simple picket design of either metal or wood for better compatibility. And here is the south facade. So though minimally visible in direct line across from Art Even Avenue, due to the slope of the street, it's very visible as you move north on Art Even, and visible when looking northeast at the building. This is the facade with the biggest massing issue, both on the building itself and the building to the south. These are the photos again of the building from the rear yard. So this photo on the left is from the rear yard, and then the photo on the right is looking northeast towards the addition. The materials proposed for the addition are compatible and appropriate to the existing building and the style of the house. We have the new door in the gate replacing the non-compatible ones. The windows on the new addition, smooth stucco, roofing and colors. And then the proposed renderings that were part of your staff report packets. And then due to the massing concerns on the property to the south and the high visibility from the addition from Art Even Ave looking northeast, staff does recommend a return for redesign with the first condition to redesign the proposed addition to be built at grade rather than on the roof, probably at the location of the existing pool room at the rear of the house. But if the commission is inclined to move forward with the second story addition, staff does recommend conditions 2 through 4 to help make it more compatible. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any commissioner questions for staff? Seeing none, I have one oral, I'll open up for oral communications. I have one card for this item on the agenda. Is it Sako Safiani? Please come forward, state your name, and you have 5 minutes.
My name is Sako Safiani. I'm the owner of the project. I have printed some pictures. If you could look at them and pass them along. Obviously I live in Glendale, but I work teach at Valley College. Hopefully that's not, that won't be held against me. Anyway, this is, of course, from my point of view. I haven't been in direct contact with the staff. My architect has been. So this is my view of what has transpired. So I'm going to read this to you. Hopefully you'll be patient enough with me. As you can see, our house, like so many others in our neighborhood, has a high roof line, and given the shape of the roof, it has an attic. What we decided to do is utilize the attic that's over the bedroom nearest the backyard as a den, which we currently don't have. The problem is that the height of the attic from the bedroom ceiling is only 7 feet, so we proposed to raise the roof line by 1 foot to make the den habitable. As you can see, from the story pole, it is hardly visible from the street. It is visible, but it's not voluminous, it's not gigantic. Originally based on the square footage recorded for our house at the tax assessor's office, we calculated that if we demolished the 20 by 9 pool room that the previous owner had built, we would have enough square footage for the den. So our architect made the plans and presented the package to the design team in October of 2022. We were then notified by email that the staff would visit our house in January to see how the addition will look from the streets. During that visit, neither of the visiting design team members raised any concerns or reservations about the project. Subsequent to their visit in January, we were told that our project will be heard by the HPC in its March hearing and indicated to the architect that the staff would support the project in the hearing. Then we were informed that due to our setback being about 5 inches short, we had to apply for an administrative exemption, which we did, pay the required fee, and receive the approval. Due to a misunderstanding between the architect and the design team as to when the deadline for the revised plans were, we were notified that the May hearing had already been scheduled and that our hearing would have to be pushed to June 15. 10 days before the June 15 hearing, the architect was informed that a story pole showing the outlines of the addition would be required. A week before the hearing, the story pole was put up, and a few days before the hearing, it was inspected by the design team and okayed. By this time, the notice for the June 15 public hearing was also posted on our front lawn, and still we were under the impression that the project would be supported by the staff, and our time and expenses were not being wasted. Then, in the evening before the hearing, our architect was informed that the hearing would have to be canceled because upon further investigation, it was discovered that we did not have sufficient FAR for the den. That caused the hearing to be postponed for 2 months to August. After that, our architect made changes to the plan, reducing the size, and emailed the new plans to the design team, who, according to the architect, accepted the changes, and we were thus set to have the hearing in August. Then, before scheduling the hearing for August, the architect received an email from saying that the project couldn't go forward because the staff just discovered that, according to the updated assessor's records, we were actually already over the maximum FAR allowed. Our architect was told that since they had not realized this before, the owner could get his money back if he agreed to cancel the project. We told the architect that we still wanted to find a way to do the project, and in consultation with him, decided to demolish the basement to create the needed FAR. The architect relayed this to the design team and was told that in that case, we would have to fill the basement with solid concrete. That's what I was told by the architect, to reduce its height below the threshold for habitability. We agreed, and the architect sent the updated plans to the staff. We thought we had crossed this hurdle as well, and that the project was still supported by the staff. The only concern that had been raised, other than the FAR, while going back and forth on the FAR issue, and before the June hearing that was canceled due to FAR questions, was that our next-door neighbor had raised a privacy concern, which we addressed by making size reductions, which were accepted by the staff. It's noteworthy that that neighbor already has a 2-story home on their other side, not to mention also right across the street from her. It's hard to avoid it. We live on a street where many, if not most, houses have 2 stories. Again, we were not proposing anything that violated any code, and we made several adjustments, including size reductions suggested by the staff, to alleviate that concern, and our added den would have nowhere the volume that other 2-story homes have on our street. We also relayed to the staff that we would mitigate the privacy issue further through the use of fence, trees, flowers, fencing, and we were open to other suggestions. Then last Friday, August 11th, the architect received yet another email saying that upon further review of the project, they had decided that the second story den looked too big in volume from the south side and would not be it would not be recommended by the staff. As you can see, we've been led to believe all along for almost a year that the project is legal, reasonable, and acceptable. Save some FAR questions, which we made sure every step of the way to resolve and comply with. The issue of south side view never came up before, and this is all in the emails sent back and forth. If this project was such a bad idea, it would have been clear, and we would have been told from the outset that we wouldn't have spent, so that we wouldn't have to spend so much time and money on it, and we certainly wouldn't have had to put up a story pole built for it, as was requested and which passed upon inspection. Keep in mind that architects don't make changes for free, nor are story poles put up for free, or the survey that we were asked to do by the design team to give a better view of the elevations. Right from the outset, we did everything to make it acceptable, and were never told that it wasn't. It was clear from the beginning that what the structure looked like. To bring up new issues on the 11th hour and then having resolved everything to bring up the south view is just not fair, and frankly does not speak to its unreasonableness. But regardless, let's look at the project on its own merits. In this regard, I submit to you that the importance of codes cannot be overemphasized. Codes do not just protect neighbors and neighborhoods from unscrupulous and unreasonable homeowners who might wish to encroach and impose on their neighbors or adversely change the look and feel of their street, but also protect the rights of an individual homeowner against the unreasonable and unfair demands and wishes of his or her neighbors, who might, for example, demand, say, a 25-feet setback from the property line when their neighbor wants to build on an adjacent lot, instead of what the code requires, just because they wish their neighbor as far away from them as possible. Building codes thus provide balance and mediate between the wishes of an individual homeowner and those of his or her neighbors. That's why I respectfully ask the members of the commission to give this the most weight in your determination to the code. What we are proposing not only is within the constraints of the relevant codes, is a modest den with a seating area of 11.5 by 16 feet, within an addition of 16 by 19, which with the proposed changes will be within our allowed FAR, is hardly visible, little visible from the street from any side, does not change the appearance of the house in any significant or discernible way, as seen from the photos, and leaves it compatible with the homes in the neighborhood. Unlike many houses on our street, which are two-story buildings right from their entrance on the street and have large second-story volume, our proposed second-story den is far away from the street and is much smaller. Almost done.
So presenter is allowed the chair can.
We've been asked, why not use the pool room next to the garage as den? The answer is that the pool room is 9 by 20 feet and too narrow and long, and to get to it, we would have to go through the garage. That's not a good place for it then. We've been asked, why not use the basement? The answer is that the basement has no windows or natural ventilation or light and is long and narrow, only 6 feet wide. There's no other appropriate place for a den. The den is needed for a variety of reasons. One being that when our daughter's piano instructor comes, the rest of us have to have no place to go to sit and watch TV. The piano is in the living room. Likewise, when my wife's friends are visiting, I need a place to relax and not be a part of their conversation. And there's one more important point to consider. Due to prior permitted constructions and per design team's recent calculation, our house as it is now happens to be about 100 square feet over the allowed FAR for our lot size. The proposal rectifies that overage and brings the FAR back to compliance by making the basement uninhabitable, which can easily be verified. In short, this will be a small den, away from and hardly visible from the street, does not violate any zoning or other code, and is in a neighborhood with many two-story houses, much more voluminous and imposing than this, and brings the house back to compliance with the FAR rules. And finally, we're open to utilizing ways to assuage the privacy concerns of our neighbors. Nonetheless, my family and I don't take anything for granted and will greatly appreciate a yes vote to our modest addition. This has been a difficult, long, and arduous effort since October. For our honorable members of the commission, it is just another project to hear and vote on. For our family, it means everything. Thank you for your time and kind consideration.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for the speaker from commissioners?
I have questions for staff, which is, I would like you to respond to the issues surrounding it sounded like the lot size. There was a challenge on the lot size, or an issue with the lot size that came up later, which had resonances or impacts on the FAR.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
so.
before I go to the staff, any questions for the, I'll close oral communications for the homeowner?
No, you can ask questions based on the speaker, but we still have open cards
can
and
come
a
back.
caller also.
All right, then I'll keep it open and we'll just continue with the staff. All right, so.
So we had originally scheduled the project to come in June or March. We had some issues that arose. The project got pushed because of a staff mistake, which was apologized for. They needed an administrative exception because of their non-conforming setback on the south. They applied, we processed it as quickly as we could. They were then scheduled for the June hearing. The FAR that was proposed as part of the plans was 3,052 square feet for the entire FAR. Staff took what the architect and the applicant on the plans as truth. The day of the hearing in June, there was a question about a building permit. As I was collecting the data for the permit, I realized that there was an issue with the FAR. The FAR for the permit, a previous permit, was the same as the FAR after it that was on the plans then. Did a little bit more digging, pulled up the assessor records, and realized that they actually did not have 3,050 square feet to begin with. They had 3,142. So the addition they were proposing was going to put them over FAR. That was the day of the hearing. We did have to push it. At that point, we did offer a refund. We knew that staff had made the mistake. I had missed it, and we said, if you don't want to move forward and revise your plans, we can withdraw the application and offer this to you. They wanted to move forward, and July 25th, the plans were resent to me for review. On July 26th, Jay and I had a phone call with the architect and let him know that we were still having concerns over the massing now. We were provided photos from the neighbor. When we do site visits, we can't get into the yards of neighbors, but when those photos were provided to us, we had a little bit more information as to really the impact of this massing on the property to the south in the district. We did let the architect know that we would most likely be recommending a return for redesign for a one-story addition. And on August 9th, I sent an email to the architect's team letting them know that that is what the staff report would say, and then the staff report was posted on the 11th.
And just if I can throw something in, it is the applicant's responsibility to give us accurate information. We are happy that we caught this situation, but the issue was the infill of the breezeway, which was undertaken by the current owner, and it's unfortunate that the drawings did not indicate the accurate square footage, but I don't think Casey made a mistake in that. We just were able through by doing good research, which, happened to be at the last minute, unfortunately, because we were looking for something else, but we did discover it, so.
And the claim that of staff support for the project, does that just mean that you were supporting bringing it to the, like it's finished, we can bring it to the HPC?
Our recommendation in June, if you had read the staff report, was to support the project. We did support it.
With some conditions.
With some conditions. And then, with the FAR issue and then receiving the photos from neighbors of that massing to the property to the south, we did reevaluate and determine that it did not meet the design guidelines.
Yeah, in part because of the solution to the FAR problem was to open up the pool room, which raises some issues that we address in the staff report that you have. And just the effort to try to find a way to carve space out of the house to suggested that, you know, if you can do that successfully, great. It's everyone's right to do that. But we didn't think that the solution was successful enough to warrant our support. And then, as Casey said, we had information that came in after our initial report where we could see what the story poles did look like from the neighbors. We do respect neighbor privacy issues, and this balcony, it's really a balcony issue and a window issue in terms of privacy as the code is written. And the balcony is of a size that it kicks privacy into the equation for your consideration. Yeah, so that's.
So just out of curiosity, so there's no mechanism when staff is looking at a you typically would not go to see the story poles? That's for the neighbors?
We don't go to neighbors' yards, so
Okay.
those photos from the backyard, which really highlight.
We look at story poles, yeah.
So you look at them just from the street, and then if a neighbor complains, then you would, or they would just send photos? Okay.
We tell applicants, we think you may have some privacy issues,
Okay.
but we don't make design changes in our negotiation discussions with property owners. We just alert them to the fact that this could be an issue for HPC, DRB, or whoever.
Okay, thank you for the further information. Thanks.
Mr. Paul, any questions?
A couple. One question and one comment.
If your questions are based on Mr. Safiani's testimony, at this point, we should limit to that. We'll be discussing this later also.
I'll discuss, then I'll hold off.
Okay.
My question is, if the staff had known about the proper square footage back in March, would your recommendations be any different
Then tonight's
than
recommendations?
tonight's recommendations?
No.
So the time delay was just a matter of giving the refund, not changing the outcome of your report?
Well, there were several steps. There was the AE that added some delay. And we acknowledge and have apologized for and tried to make better through offering a refund after we had done a lot of the work. And it's Mr. Safiani's right to still come forward with the hearing, and that's what he chose to do. So.
That's fine. Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'll close public hearing and discussions.
No. You have a card.
I have another card?
Oh, well, actually, she hasn't submitted her card yet. You have a person in the
okay.
audience. Just come on up and hand the card to Mr. Doom.
No, these already passed.
And we have a caller
This is
as
next.
well.
Okay, hello. And you wish to speak to the Art Even Agenda 6A, so please come forward, state your name and your speak.
My name is Caroline Kiefer, and I'm the neighbor to the east of this project. So my backyard looks out onto their backyard. And my concern is privacy with the balcony, because from my patio where we sit in the evenings and enjoy the sunset, we can see where the balcony will be looking down into our yard. And one of the reasons we bought our house was because the yard was so private and so lovely, and we care about that. So that's my main concern.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you said we have a caller?
We do.
All right. Caller, please state your name, and we'll listen to you.
Good evening. This is Leslie Hughes Nardoni. I'm the resident of 1540 Art Even, which is immediately to the south of 1544 Art Even. Can I just ask if you can hear me clearly? I'm out of the country at the moment, so I'm calling in long distance.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. I didn't know anything about this project until I saw the sign and the story poles go up, and I was very dismayed to see that another home in my direct vicinity is proposing an obtrusive addition that will loom over my home. I appreciate the thought that's going into this decision, but I would really appreciate that the Historic Review Board really takes into consideration what will happen as far as privacy issues. My backyard is completely overlooked by the second-story addition that is being proposed at 1544. There is absolutely no privacy. It even looms over my home when I'm sitting in my internal private sitting area. And I can see it very clearly when I pull into my driveway or from the north side of my home. Again, it's really my hope that the board really carefully considers the impact of this plan. Like my other neighbor, I appreciate my privacy. I already am dealing with a home on the other side that looms over me and does not provide any privacy to that side of my home. And I was really hoping that once we had a historic preservation board and a historical district, that this sort of effect on a neighboring property would no longer be an issue. And that's my statement. I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. What do you say, Jay? Ready?
Now you may close the public
All
hearing.
right. I will now close this aspect public hearing and entertain questions and comments from fellow commissioners on item 6A amongst ourselves or directed to staff about the report.
Okay. Jay, I have one quick question off the top. So if I'm understanding this correctly, and as I recall from June, in June, staff supported this proposed undertaking with conditions, but now staff does not.
Yes.
What was the change?
Well, part of the change is having seen photos from the neighbor. Part of the change was the, let's say, gymnastics required to try to carve out space from the house that would allow for this to even be built by zoning code. Some of those changes at the pool room include the removal of the window and the stucco kind of lintel header across the window. The window is an issue, definitely that's solvable, and that was one of the conditions that we included in, if you're interested in considering the second story addition. But, if you look at this addition, it's in the right place on the property. If we just look at the geometry of the property and read the historic district guidelines, which don't prohibit second story additions, ask that they be differential, ask that they be pushed to the rear. So those are the reasons why we supported it in the first place. And then we kind of changed our opinion as we got more information and saw the new plans.
Was any of the change based from before versus now based off how character defining features of the house were handled from before versus now? Or more, was it based more on
Window I just
privacy?
mentioned at the pool room would be the main one.
But in June, that was not slated to go, right?
No, that was going to stay as
Okay.
it stands today.
Okay. With this addition, is the house technically, is this still considered a one-story house, or is this now a two-story house?
Well, semantics, but 2 stories, yeah.
Becomes a two-story house. Okay. The other thing I need to mention.
Which is allowed in this zone and in historic districts. So.
Okay. The other caveat I need to mention, just for the sake of being above board, is the neighbor Leslie Nardoni, who just called and who commented. I used to work with her, so I used to work with her at ICF. I know her. I have not had any contact with her about this project. I haven't talked with Leslie since I left the company 2.5 years ago. But I do know her, and I used to work with her. So I think I should just state that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
As long as our city attorneys would say, as long as you believe you can make a decision that is completely unbiased,
Yes.
despite that, you're okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Yurka, any comments?
Oh, I have. I have comments. I'm just trying to think if I have more questions. I did have one further clarification that the applicant had raised an issue with what seems like a kind of unfair timeline for the story poles. Is that something that what's the process for handling that? Like they just found out kind of suddenly that they needed.
The story pole plan was submitted as part of their plan submittals, so they were aware that they needed to put story poles up. It was probably about a week before they needed to go up that we sent the information to put them up. We probably could maybe send it a little earlier, but it's not that they weren't aware because they had the plan submitted as part of their plans.
Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go.
Yeah, and just since we're talking so much tonight, just to clarify, a lot of people know what to do with story poles, so it's not that we do have a story pole handout, and as Casey said, yeah, if in hindsight, we should have given that out earlier, but corollary, if you didn't know what a story pole was, we're available to answer that question, and since the drawings showed story poles, we presumed that there was a certain knowledge on the design team's part to do that.
Can I reopen the public hearing to hear recent comments from the two previous speakers?
Excuse me?
It looks like the two previous speakers wish to.
No, you
I can't
generally
reopen the-
shouldn't do that.
Okay. I'm sorry, I can't.
Yeah.
All right. If I could ask you, Casey, to please put up your proposals, your four proposals you had earlier?
The recommendation?
Yes, staff recommendations. And in number 2, what examples would you have to address the privacy concerns? Would you recommend, would staff suggest for number 2?
The commission can look to eliminate the balcony. They could add privacy screening along the south, reduce the size of the balcony. The balcony isn't necessarily needed as part of the den. It could just be a room at that second story. All things to discuss.
And for interior spaces, privacy is considered from what we would call the public rooms of a house rather than the bedrooms, bathrooms. So the living rooms, dens are considered public spaces. So one other way that the DRB has often addressed this is by eliminating windows on the wall that overlooks a property, by having windows that have a high sill so that you can still bring light and air into the room without having it be a window that someone would likely be standing in front of and looking out toward the neighbors. So those are, window changes and elimination of the balcony, I would say, are the two ways to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Or screening of the balcony. So.
I have a question for staff. So according to the design guidelines, second-story additions to single-story buildings in the historic district are allowed, correct? So how does that, if this is this is being identified as a ranch structure, a ranch building, and ranch buildings have, they typically have low-slung, cross-gabled, horizontal roofs. The DPR, which I'm looking at right here, talks about it's 1-story height, and I get that. Additions are allowed. Would not the addition of this to this building be an alteration or a material impairment of a character-defining feature, which would be the single-story roof or its immediate setting, which CEQA talks about? So how is this addition not a material impairment to a building that's been previously identified a certain way in the DPR? And suddenly there's going to be this pop-up massing on something the DPR defines as 1-story, and a roof which is basically a cross-gabled roof right now associated with ranch houses and or Tudor design houses. They typically don't have these bump ups. So I'm going through the staff report and I'm looking at how Secretary of the Interior Standard Number 2 was addressed, and it talks about the removal of historic materials or alteration of features and spaces that characterize the property shall be avoided. But wouldn't the roof as it is be a character defining feature? And if you have this kind of addition on the roof, Is that aspect of the standard somehow negated because second-story additions are allowed?
Well, as you know, the standards are very broadly written, and they're able to accommodate multiple solutions to any design question. You are also correct that ranch houses are typically one-story, unless you talk to people who talk about split-level ranches and two-story ranches,
Sure,
which
there
I
are split
personally
levels.
object to. The two-story ranch concept, I don't think that exists. And that's why I used the word semantics when you asked about the two-story. This is still, to all appearances from the street, a one-story house that would, if this were built, have a clear two-story bump up toward the back corner. And as I said, if you are going to make a second-story addition to a house like this, that is the place to put this. But it does not negate standard 2. I think we tell people when we're creating historic districts that, you know, we are going to let you do things to your house, despite the fact that it's a historic district. And because this is a second-story addition, we also tell people that that's the kind of thing that has to come to HPC. You are able to, as commissioners, approve something like this, and by code, you're even able to approve something if you don't think it meets the standards, but you think it's appropriate to the historic district. So that's, you know, that's my relatively brief answer to that.
Okay.
So, may I start the comments, or?
Yes.
Daniel, did you have more? Okay. So I shared your concerns about the character-defining features, because a one-story ranch house, that seems quite fundamental to it, and also it is visible from the street. I agree with staff that if you were to allow a second-story bump out, that would be the best place to do it, but that begs the question of whether a second story is the best way to address the desire for more space. And I do think that second story additions within historic districts and on contributors, I think that is it's tricky. And I think that apart from the privacy considerations of the neighbors, but which I think, looking at the photos, are very legitimate, and I think really do need to be addressed in our decision making. I appreciate what the applicant was saying about the code, and of course this actually wasn't up to code, because that's why the administrative exception was needed, because the code said you needed a certain setback and you were just under that. But that's been addressed. I know that you got the administrative exception. But the code is the sort of the boxes you need to check in order to bring a project forward for design review by the DRB or by the HPC. And just being up to code or meeting the code isn't sufficient for a historic resource and a property within a historic district. And indeed, I mean, I was struck by the testimony of the caller that one of the reasons that people do form historic districts is to ensure that the historic character of the neighborhood as a whole, but also the individual properties, is maintained. And I, for one, I remember I actually went by this house when the historic district survey had been prepared. And I was very dismayed when all the windows had been replaced as part of that process, because that was, to my mind, especially the particular character of the windows. And I know I believe you had a permit for that, so that's not a criticism of you. I'm looking at you, staff.
It's not a criticism of us either. It could be a criticism of the city, but
Okay.
staff was not.
Okay, it's criticism of the city, but this does, the second story, because the windows were unique and exceptional, I felt, And so this does also just raises sort of integrity considerations for me. And to my mind, I think if there is a solution that allows, an addition at the first story, that would always be the superior solution for a ranch-style house. But given the issue of integrity, it is less visible from the street than I can imagine other ones might be, but it is visible. And then also the privacy considerations of the neighborhoods. I would go with staff's recommendation for a return for not for return for redesign, but that the addition needs to be made at the first story.
Which is a return for redesign.
A return
decision,
for
yeah.
that is. Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry. Yeah, return for redesign.
I do share some of Kathy's concerns regarding the nipping away of integrity with this particular resource. The fact that the windows have been changed. I think it's nice that some of the things would be returned, but I do get concerned about the total integrity with this particular bump out on the top. I feel like the integrity of the house today is already getting quite questionable. And if every house in the Cumberland Heights South District looked like this, would it even be a district anymore? I think that's up for debate. I have some concerns about that. I'm a little bit concerned about this idea, which CEQA talks about, of the possibility of material impairment to immediate surroundings, which sounds like a settings issue, but it's in the CEQA language. The neighbor who lives behind the house, the neighbor who lives next to the house, and the resource is not just this house, it's the district. So you have a change beyond the house itself to the district, and it's the district that's the listed historical resource. And I would argue that there is a change to immediate surroundings that was not there before. Aside from the change to the roof, that could possibly be a material impairment or a substantial adverse change under CEQA.
Thank you. Are there any motions?
Well, if
Oh, no.
ask for a
I'm
motion
good.
if you don't have any comments.
Any further comments? The chair will entertain a motion.
Do you have any comments?
Well, I was trying to move this along and just say this, what we have. Very briefly, I love your reading of the books. I used to read my book to these meetings and look all these rules up. And I agree, a ranch-style house is a single-story house. Mm-hmm. And the reason we have these districts is to preserve the neighborhood and the houses. And I think that's what we should do.
And just to add to what you're saying, Commissioner, this this is the idea of this is a little bit, as a ranch house, I think it's a little bit of a mongrel. There's definitely a lot of Tudor elements, but even as a single-story Tudor house, I'm not, and just in terms of character defining features, regardless of privacy concerns, I don't find the addition very compelling because of its massing, even if it is in the best possible place. It's not the kind of addition you would even see on single-story Tudor houses from that era. And again, this is a very late. It's either it's a ranch or it's a ranch with Tudor influences. Either way, I question the volume and the massing of this raised element, even if it is in the best possible place. And as was previously mentioned before, if you look at this from up Artevine, and again, you're within, if you're not within, you're at the edge of one historic district and another, that above, I believe the street is Grandview or Glenview. It's quite, that addition is going to be quite visible. And we're talking historic districts here. That's a view from within a historic district. It'll be changing the immediate setting of that district.
So I will move that the project be returned for redesign, eliminating the second-story volume in favor of a one-story addition, or addition at the first story. Is that sufficient?
Yeah.
Is there a second?
He seems to have a question.
No oral communications have passed. Okay. As chair, can I second?
No.
I didn't think so.
I'll second as non-chair.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, moved and seconded to adopt redesign proposal number 1. Resubmit. We'll have roll call, Casey?
Commissioner Yurka,
Yes.
Commissioner Paul,
Yes.
and Chairperson Doom.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you. It is now item 7A for new business addressing 2323 Blanchard Drive, recommendation for a Mills Act application. Is there a staff report? Brief interlude while we await further changes.
I think the next will probably go quicker. No further yeah, at 7. You got to be at LAX at 7. Okay. Okay.
Maybe you could suggest to me where on the first floor we can build it later?
Yeah, I told Aiden to give me a call
Where
tomorrow.
on the first floor, yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Do the report for 7?
Onto a very happy presentation. So this is the Glendale Register nomination and Mills Act application for 2323 Blanchard Drive. The property is located in the Verdugo Woodlands neighborhood on the southwest corner of Blanchard Drive and Capistrano Avenue. Blanchard Drive is a small curving street with no sidewalks and only 4 lots actually that faced east. The street is actually named after the original owner's father, Hiram Blanchard Woodall, who was a police commissioner in the city. The Tudor Revival style building was constructed in 1938 and is a highly intact and distinctive example of Tudor Revival style architecture in the city. The building is designed with a myriad of character-defining features common to the Tudor Revival style and also some unique to this property. It has a high-pitched cross-gable roof and is clad in various materials including brick, stucco, and horizontal wood siding. The primary entrance is set back on the facade, created by 2 projecting gables on either end, and a flagstone uncovered porch spans the entrance and north portion of the facade. The gables have these interesting stucco corner returns and multi-light steel casement windows. Some floor to ceiling add an additional layer of texture to the facade. Closer details on the facade reveal these stepped-in brick corners at the gable ends, as well as the chamfer corners created by the angled bricks. The windows and doors have heavy lintels with textured and details, and leaded stained glass windows are mirrored in the sconces. The north facade is highly visible from Capistrano Avenue, and the most striking features are these bay windows. They are rounded and extend just above the roofline with a metal cornice. The 3 windows in the bay are divided by stucco mullions, and the fixed windows at the center come to a point with 2 rows of lights on either side instead of rounding to mimic the shape of the bay, creating this stark angular shape in contrast to the round bay itself. I wish I had put maybe a better closer up photo here. And then the angled wood sills span uninterrupted below these 3 windows to help tie the conflicting shapes together in a really interesting way. Some more photos of the north facade and the brick chimney to the east. The rear facade is clad in stucco with a clear L shape. It has multi-light steel casement windows in shingles, pears, and ribbons. There's also a bay window with that's similar to the ones on the north, though simplified in design. And to the north, there was a recessed patio that was enclosed with sliding multi-light doors, as you can see in the left-hand photo there. The north end of the rear facade has an additional entrance, multi-light casement windows, and a curved, almost modern building form. This is just a collection of the other various windows on the building, some from the front. This dormer window that you can see on the rear facade has a metal seam roof, and then some more stained glass windows throughout. The detached garage in the southwest corner of the lot has an irregular footprint due to the additions of a maid's quarter added in 1954, which was later converted to a pool room. And in 1964, the pool was added, and then this upper seating area in the northwest corner was added in 2023. The detached garage is accessed from Bonita Drive at the rear of the property. It has a double garage door to the south and a single garage door to the north. And the space behind that single garage door was converted to a seating and storage area. And this wood fence replaced a deteriorating wood fence in the same location in 2023. The building has surprisingly seen very little alterations over the years. The rear patio here was enclosed for interior living space with these sliding wood doors by the current owner. And then additionally, the original front patio was replaced with the current one. It's similar design and size, though you can see from this historic photo, these stairs used to be curved, where they're now squared off. Additional changes include the maid's quarter, pool room that was added to the rear of the detached garage, and the seating area behind the wood fence, and then at an unknown date, the detached garage car stall, which was converted as well. With that, staff does find the property eligible for listing under Criterion 3 as an excellent and interestingly detailed example of Tudor Revival style architecture in the city. It has a collection of features classic to the Tudor, and then some almost Art Deco creates this really interesting transitional residential building from almost period to modern. The building is also in great condition, retaining a high degree of integrity, and staff recommends just one Mills Act condition to paint and stain the new wood fence to better blend into the color of the house. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a quick question. If you went back to your slide with all the windows, yes, that works. Are those all original windows on the
Yes.
upper top? They are.
Yeah, so there are steel windows on the property, and the current owner actually had them restored, so they are all original.
Thank you. That's awesome.
And I have a question. Sure. And so there was a stairway, there was a rounded step at the front that's gone, right? At
So
the main entry.
the original patio at the front was this kind of flagstone flat patio that spanned in the same location as the current, just the steps leading up to it were round originally, and the stairs now are squared and have a brick detailing.
Thank you.
Commissioner Yurka, any questions for staff? Okay. We'll open the hearing for public communications. I have one speaker on this item. Kelly Cavell? Yes. Please come forward, state your name, and you have 5 minutes to address this item on the agenda.
I will be less than 5 minutes, I
Thank you.
promise. My name is Kelly Cavell. I'm the owner of this property. And I just wanted to thank the commissioners for entertaining the preservation of this home. It's a very special house. And it also just will continue the tradition of this city of preserving homes that have historic status, which I'd like to see continue on. Also would like to thank staff for all your help through this process. It's been very, very easy and seamless and painless, which is nice. And I just want to let you know how excited my husband and I are at the prospect of our house being designated historic because, again, it's a great step forward, not only for our house, but for Glendale in general, because homes like ours and other homes throughout the neighborhood and throughout Glendale that have historic features, I think should be preserved because that's part of the character of this city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any comments for the speaker?
Yeah, I have a question. So you guys redid the stairway at the front, but it was not, it wasn't the curved.
We actually did not redo. When we bought the house in 2016, it was like that. We just somehow got those pictures from the original owner's son, who just reached out to us, you know, by coincidence during this whole process and sent us those pictures. We had no idea that that's what the stairs looked like originally.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
so I must have confused. For some reason, I thought that you had redone the front
No.
area, but it was maybe the flagstone at the
We
back.
redid the backyard.
Okay, that's my mistake
Right.
then.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Sure.
Because I didn't. I since I live in the Woodlands, I did not remember it ever having a curve.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Ball?
Just really quick, I'm just curious to know what landscaping elements you've changed in the front yard, if anything.
Nothing since we've purchased the
Okay.
house. Maybe just added a few plants, just to fill in some bare spots, but
Okay.
nothing else.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, you're free to go. Okay. Any items of discussion amongst commissioners ourselves for staff or this issue? Commissioner Yurka?
Oh, I
Commissioner
have
Paul?
comments.
Yeah, okay. All right, let's hear your comments.
So as I said, I live in the Verdugo Woodlands. I walk by this house all the time. I believe it was a Halloween about 8 years ago when I ran over to the owners and said, "You should put this house on the register." Again, long before I was on the commission, and so I'm very happy to see it come before us. And please send me a copy of that photo, because that wood kind of higgledy-piggledy fence, that's pure Verdugo Woodlands back in the day, and it's just amazing to have. I know it from that kind of style from Neodrera. I haven't seen it elsewhere in the neighborhood. And it's amazing to think that this would have been a lot wider spread.
It'd be
than I
concrete,
thought.
right?
Yeah, so that's
Oh, yes, yeah.
that's a concrete that's sometimes called faux bois or trabajo rustico. I did a landmark nomination for a 1965 playground called La Laguna in San Gabriel, a bunch of sea creatures. And the guy, those were not rough wood for kids to climb on, but he had a background in this, and I had to write a whole context statement on it. It would be, it's just really, really, I think this is a postcard here. It's so enchanting with the boulders and the round steps and the faux bois, and it's just very, very of the era, just so wonderful.
And actually, it's faux bois in the Neodrera Drive Historic District, but nothing quite like that.
We have the most amazing faux bois on Kenneth Road in the backyard of one of our Glendale Register properties. Super cool.
Can almost landmark that just individually.
Well, it's part of their designation, so. And they hired the guy who did the work at the Huntington Gardens to do their restoration work. It came out great. So.
I think it's a great addition, and without any further discussion, I think we should entertain a motion to approve. I believe as staff recommended to stay in the fence so it blends in as nicely as the neighborhood. Is there such a suggestion?
I just want to add one comment, and this is just to staff, that when you're presenting it, I think because the Mills Act is such a big, property tax reduction, I think it's very important to clarify, like kind of upfront, all the work that went into the windows, because it was incredibly expensive. So to say the property's been very well maintained, these owners really put a lot of money into it already, and I think it would be helpful for council to hear that. That's just my sense.
You're right. Windows are big. Mr. Paul, would you like to make a recommendation?
I make a recommendation to vote, to what? Adopt this 2323 Blanchard Drive as a City of Glendale landmark with all of the benefits that provides relative to the Mills Act.
May I quickly just help counsel you in the language of Glendale?
Register nomination.
You're making a motion to list the house in the Glendale Register of Historic Resources.
That's right.
And you're also recommending to council, so this is an advisory call.
That's exactly
So you
what
have
I
a motion
said.
to recommend that council list this in the Glendale Register and
Yes.
issue a Mills Act contract. So.
Absolutely.
Very
So,
With the condition.
okay, my apologies here.
You're still new.
My motion here is to recommend to Glendale City Council 2323 Blanchard Drive listed on the Glendale as a Glendale Register nomination and Mills Act application.
Beautiful. Is there a
one-
second?
one further thing, and you guys didn't discuss this, and I was out for a minute. When we have Mills Act conditions, we have to establish a timeline for those to be
Okay.
completed.
And I would like to just bring up one other thing. I mean, this is more a comment, but I don't think it should necessarily have to be a Mills Act condition if this passes. But I do think it would be really nice to see that faux bois and that boulder treatment back. Not necessarily, mandate of any kind, but it was really striking.
I would agree with that it should not be a condition, but
Definitely not.
just a lovely thought.
Yes.
But I do.
Sadly, it does not meet zoning code.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, is
right.
that why? Okay.
That's right. Yeah, that makes sense. So, so I did want to. I wanted to suggest a one-year timeline for the painting of the fence.
One year.
1 year.
1 year?
Is that agreeable to
Yes.
the commission?
Fair? Yes.
That's
Okay.
fair.
And does the commission have any preference, paint versus stain?
I prefer stain myself. but
Can we
that's
go back
okay.
to the historic image? The images in color?
Couldn't really see it there.
Yes, there was no original wood fence back there. There
There was an existing wood fence that this fence replaced, but that wood fence was not original.
Do you have an image of the wood fence that's at the side of the property? The one that abuts the neighbor? Because that seemed like just a
Like on
darker.
Capistrano?
No, it would be on the south side of the property. Like, if you have a photo of the pool, you might have captured the fence. But you might not. You
We're gonna
might
pull
not
up
have
Street
it.
View.
Yeah, this is,
You wouldn't see it in street view
Oh.
because it's between.
Oh, that fence was replaced as well.
Oh,
let's go back. Oh, wait, let's go to the
I'm going
Mills
the wrong
Act
way.
condition.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
This would have been the next one. Okay.
Wait, the Mills Act condition, please.
We were just going to find the fence. Are you talking about, that's the wood fence? Are you talking about this fence?
Oh, yeah, it is exactly the,
Same, yeah.
yeah. For some reason, I was remembering it in dark brown.
Ultimately,
Paint
paint
stain,
or
then you
staff, we don't care. We would probably recommend a dark brown kind of finish that kind of blends with other things.
I would recommend that too. I
Yeah.
mean, just either a dark brown stain or dark brown paint.
Yeah.
It's compatible,
All right.
flexibility.
So we're in the middle of a motion. We have a
Second?
motion, and did we get a second?
Oh, you do now?
Okay, we got a second, because I already wrote that down because I was anticipating, but
I can't.
Only
so-
option.
It's only one alternative.
And I will take roll. Commissioner Yerka,
Yes.
Commissioner Paul,
Yes.
Chairperson Doom.
Yes.
Passes 3-0.
So in the year 2023, we approved 2023 Blanchard Drive, Mills Act.
323.
Yeah.
Wow.
okay,
Cool.
because of our short meeting tonight, I gave the applicant the option to, I didn't think we'd be able to cover that if Mr. Doom has to leave us. So she will return to the next hearing, whether that's September or October, we don't know yet, but whenever it is, she'll be calendared for that hearing. I recommend, we have 3 updates. One is our long year-end wrap-up, which maybe we postpone, or how do you feel about that?
We could
Wanna cruise
postpone.
through
We
it?
could probably cruise
How's your
through it.
schedule, Mr. Doom?
I have 25 minutes, so let's go.
Literally, okay.
Yeah.
Let's try to crank it out.
I don't know where my notes went
And
on
I think I put the 2 other updates first because they're not as exciting, so I'll just cover
Good luck.
those real quick. I was hoping to have a council date for the streamlining of the historic district process. We do not have a council date, so that will be coming soon. It will be this year, definitely. We have someone kind of working on that. There's been a little snag, so on all kinds of council dates. The Bellhurst Historic District Survey, update number 2. The draft has been submitted. We're currently reviewing it. According to their schedule, if you remember, this is the district that we were, based on community input, we're looking at identifying the likelihood of an expansion meeting the thresholds for a district. The team is supposed to be doing that work while we have the draft under review. I haven't talked to them. We just got it a week ago, I think, or, yeah, fairly recently. So anyways, that's where that is. So that's moving. There've been a bunch of delays on it, but it's reaching kind of the end zone.
I have a question about it. So would the added properties, they would go under the new process, presumably? Because they'd have to have
If
petitions?
they become, yeah, they'd have to be
Okay.
nominated. Yeah, they would come under the new, and as it would be even more streamlined just because we would have this information in place. We'd still have to kind of beef up the survey. I don't know exactly. We're not getting DPR forms for for the properties for this. This is going to be an analysis of whether they're contributors. Do we meet the 60% threshold? What's the period of significance? What's the appropriate boundary? So there would still be work to be done.
All right, 8C.
All right, let's look at all the fun stuff we did in 2019 to 2022. So over this time frame, pretty busy. We did, the commission reviewed 21 Glendale Register nominations, 21 Mills Act applications, did 10 design review projects, 20 Mills Act conditions were completed by Glendale Register property owners, and 2 historic districts were reviewed and designated. Walking through some of the Mills Act conditions that were completed, the Howland House at 1837 Schurer Lane replaced the pavers in that rear yard with more appropriate pavers, so this is their new rear patio. At the Austin House, 1427 Andenise Drive, they removed the inappropriate concrete patching at the stairs so that it's a little more seamless aesthetically, and then they painted that electric panel along the side. The Wright House, 1116 Don Jose Drive, had 4 conditions, and all conditions have been completed. They replaced all the inappropriate vinyl windows, which I think look great. They removed the upper railing over the portico and painted the exterior of the building. And then they pulled that fence back from the corner of the house to better reveal it. The Calori House, 3021 East Chevy Chase Drive, which was actually designated in 1977 but received its Mills Act in 2019, had 4 conditions to complete. They replaced the wood window in the bathroom that was old and rotted. There was also repair to the deteriorated wood lintels along the property, and then some more lintels where the glass was sinking and there was dry rot along the bottom.
This is actually a big change.
Yeah.
That was not in good shape, they discovered, and so.
Wow, looks great.
They did some patching through stucco cracks, and then closed the gap around the garage door and extended the downspout, so all their conditions are also completed. The Whittick House at 1818 Pasa Glen had 1 condition, which was to repair the exterior painted wood, and this is just some photos of that wood looking stellar. The Newton House at 305 East Randolph Street had 2 conditions, which were also completed. They replaced the light fixtures with a more appropriate style and then repaired a broken window at the rear of the house. And then the Tatum House at 1300 North Maryland also only had 1 condition, which was to paint the exterior. And they also have their plaque up, nice and ready to go. Glendale Register nomination and Mills Act applications. A total of 21 properties were reviewed for listing the Glendale Register, with 19 of those designated by City Council. 18 are officially listed. 1 is still pending City Council review. And those were 1837 Schurer Lane, 1116 Don Jose, 1818 Pasa Glen, 1319 Greenmont. We had 1545 Virginia Avenue, 1235 Glenwood Road, 3030 Edgewick Road, 1425 Andenez Drive. Edgewick, that brick wall is beautiful. Nibley Park was designated, 305 East Randolph Street, 268 West Kenneth Road, 1300 North Maryland, 1575 Shure Road, which was my first nomination with in this process of mine. 1639 Santa Barbara, 1559 Grandview, 711 East Mountain, 849 Kavanaugh Road, 2795 Mira Vista Drive, which might be one of my favorite nominations, and 1012 Crestview Road, which is the property still waiting City Council review. The commission also reviewed and designated 2 historic districts, so the South Cumberland Heights Historic District and the Casa Verdugo in 2021.
And there are also two 2 recommendations to not list properties, right?
Yes, there were, of the 21 nominations reviewed, there were 2 properties, 1420 Winchester and 3188 Paddington, which were denied recommendation.
And in both cases, they chose not to go to council. They have the right to go to council even if you recommend not listing.
1420 did go to council
Oh, that's right.
and was denied at council.
That's right.
Really?
Thank you.
Wow.
And that's it. Nice job.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. Looks cool.
Record
All those
speed,
homes.
yeah.
Wonderful. And in closing, before we adjourn, first, we miss Chairman Craig Naughty for this wonderful meeting. Please hurry back. And today, to adjourn, in name of our Commissioner Emeritus, Mike Morgan.
Who still lives.
He is now Commissioner Emeritus. Okay, is that all right?
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you. Close the meeting at 6:45. Wonderful, 6:42.